Your alternative talk radio contact. The Planet. KGRAradio.com.
With infinite complacence, people went to and fro of the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
Hello everybody, welcome to another edition of Into the Fray. First of all, thoughts with everyone bracing for Hurricane Florence. From what I'm reading this morning here, Wednesday, it is predicted to be a really devastating blow to the Carolinas, so thoughts are with you guys out there. Also, I am still looking for a team or someone to go out to Gianna's home in Maryland. She is in New Carrollton, Maryland. And if you recall, she was on episode 152, which was entitled Paranormal Activity in New Carrollton. Anyhow, I haven't yet had anyone come forward. Maybe there's just no one in the area that has heard of this yet. If you know of anybody that might be a good fit to go into her home, we're really just looking to tamp this stuff down. And of course, we understand you likely want to get some evidence. That's totally fine with us. She's actually had more activity since she came on the show. And when I say activity, I mean it's really ramped up for her. So we are definitely looking for someone to go in there and help her calm things down. Or if you are capable of doing that yourself, that's even better. So please get a hold of me either through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or you can email me, Shannon at intothefrayradio.com. If you do not follow me on social media, you may have missed some pretty big news. I was on recently with Dave Schrader. He is the host of Midnight in the Desert, which was of course started by the incomparable Art Bell. Well, I am now one of the rotating guest hosts of Midnight in the Desert. I do have some dates coming up that I should be live on the air for them, and I will keep you guys informed as those dates grow closer. You can listen to Midnight in the Desert Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. to midnight Pacific Standard Time. Go to midnightinthedesert.com for more information.
Welcome to another episode of Into the Fray, hovering over you like a black triangle in a deserted field. Visit the mothership at intothefrayradio.com. There you can find all the episodes, the blog posts, ITF gear, and sign up for the free guest newsletter. The weekly show is, of course, always free and available in all podcatchers, but if you'd like to support the show, and why wouldn't you, go to the website and click Become an Insider, which in turn gets you extra content each and every month. And by the way, if you would be so kind as to leave a rating and review in your listening platform of choice, Cosmic Karma shall be yours. Be part of the discussion by joining the interactive ITF Facebook group. Follow on Twitter at ITF_radio and Instagram. If you have an experience that you'd like to share, email Shannon at intothefrayradio.com. Thanks so much for listening. Now, if you would be so kind, buckle up your safety belts. Put that tray table in the upright position. Liftoff is upon us.
On this edition of Into the Fray, I have back on with me Max Hawthorne, and he is, of course, the author of the Kronos Rising series. And behind me, I have one of my favorite posters on my wall of oddities that he gave me. It's the largest thing in the room. And
besides my ego.
Yeah, of course, right. Yeah, no, when I'm in here, that is definitely the biggest thing. You stop that now. All right. Now, also, you're doing a blog talk radio show called Max Hawthorne's Marine Mysteries. Is that weekly? Is it bi-weekly? Do you have a schedule for that? What's going on?
Right now, my writing schedule is very heavy, and I've got multiple projects going on. So realistically, we've only been able to do one show like every 4 weeks, once a month or something like that.
Right.
But it's in its infancy, but it's growing in popularity, and readers seem to enjoy it. We always get a lot of questions sent in for me to do, like during a Q&A portion, et cetera. So it gives a nice angle to touch on things and interview people that have seen things or to discuss previous sightings and such.
I miss Blog Talk Radio for the fact that they have the nice call-in interface where, you can have live call-in shows. I really miss doing that.
Yeah, it can be a little stressful, though.
It is. No, it's a juggling act for sure. You have to be a good multitasker to do that. That's where I had my infamous or famous Snoring Steve incident, where I went back to a caller and he was snoring very loudly into his either phone or microphone earbuds, whatever it might have been. But he's lovingly known as Snoring Steve now.
Wow,
that's how interesting I am, Max. I know that's why you keep wanting to come back on my show. So I put a few folks to sleep, I guess. Like, I don't know if I should take that as a compliment, as a soothing voice, or the content is just subpar. I don't know.
I find your show much more interesting. I was on one show where another guest on there was dominating the conversation to the point you couldn't get a word in. Mm-hmm. And I actually went on Amazon and started doing product reviews.
During the interview?
Oh, yes. And then after 20 minutes of this person rambling, the host was like, so what do you think about that, Max? And I had to pretend like I was paying attention. I was like, oh, yeah, I agree 100%. What are we talking about?
You're like, totally. Totes McCoats.
But I got some reviews done. So
you got to see, you're a multitasker. There you go.
You have to be.
All right. Well, on this particular episode, and I'm sure you and I will have more, but on this one, we are talking about the super predator identified with, of course, a slight question mark at the end, but I think you have a really good case as to what you think it is. And this involves a 9+ foot female great white named Alpha, which I find very ironic, and I think they cursed her by naming her that, if you ask me now. But her name was Alpha, and a little something happened to her about 10 years ago, right? So maybe you could fill everyone in on what happened to poor old Alpha.
There was actually 2 documentaries done on networks about this, and it went viral big time because people were, I guess it was water cooler talk throughout the country or the world even. Apparently this shark had been tagged by researchers. They put a satellite tag into its dorsal fin, which the shark swims along with the tag attached to it. And after a period of time, that tag is designed to eventually, over weeks or months, the connection point dissolves. The tag will bob up to the surface, releasing a satellite signal, and then the researchers are able to retrieve it. And it lets them determine the shark's movements over the course of several months. What depths it was swimming at, what the water temperature was, its speed, things of that nature. In this case, the tag washed up earlier than expected on the shoreline, if memory serves. And there was evidence that it had been exposed to some sort of stomach acid. So that was the first interesting point. And when they checked the data in it, they discovered that for X number of weeks, Alpha had been behaving normally in terms of her swimming movements and so forth. And then all of a sudden, she had dove at an extreme speed into the depths of the Bremer Canyon off Australia. I believe almost 2,000 feet down, I think 1,900 something feet, let's say, which at that depth, it's pretty much pitch black, just so you know. And then all of a sudden, the tag stopped, and the temperature that it was reading, which is the temperature of the water, jumped almost immediately from 46 degrees, the water temperature, to 78 degrees, and it stayed there for the next 8 days. This temperature, they realized, was the stomach temperature of some sort of enormous predator that they estimated had actually caught, killed, and eaten this 3-meter great white shark. And then at that point, after 8 days, the tag was excreted, putting it in polite terms, washed ashore, was found, etc. So it caused quite the buzz, because then the question came up as to what did this? What animal was out there that can not only catch and kill a great white shark, but from what they believe, swallowed it whole also or something. So a lot of theories were put out, and there were a lot of different, obviously, candidates, let's say, the usual suspects. But when I looked at them, and I had written about this about 18 months ago at first, because it wasn't jibing, like all the evidence. You look at a list of potential candidates for this. Like, well, what do you think what do you think of? What can you think of that is a known extant animal that could catch and kill a almost 10-foot shark? What comes to mind?
I mean, the first thing I thought of, without reading some of the points that you brought up, was a killer whale. That's the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, and there are a lot of orcas in the Bremer Canyon. They are aggressive predators. In fact, in one of the documentaries, they filmed a pod of them playing at the surface with their meal, and their meal was the remains of an enormous giant squid. They apparently had the mantle of the squid, the larger portion of its head with the caudal fin,
right,
let's say, minus the portion with the eyes and all the tentacles, etc. And that section alone, I think it was like 16 or more feet long.
Wow.
And that made it far larger than any known specimen of a giant squid that they discovered, which meant that squid total length, including the long feeding tentacles, let me think about this, maybe 70 feet.
Holy smokes. Oh, it would have been incredible to see that thing while it was still alive.
But these orcas were able to not only catch it, but rip it to pieces.
Yeah.
See, which shows you they're very badass animals.
Yeah.
But, so you look at the killer whale and you say, okay, well, this is a very likely candidate. But then you look at the different bits of evidence that you've got there. The first and foremost problem is body temperature. An orca's body temperature is the same as yours and mine, around 98, 99 degrees. So right away now, we know a killer whale is out for body temperature. They also don't dive that deep. I think the deepest recorded depth is like 500 and something feet. And this is 4 times deeper. The digestive process, it was in the super predator stomach for 8 days. That didn't jibe either. So that was a triple whammy there. The only thing that did match was the super predator's behavior after it had eaten alpha. They said that for the next 8 days, as it was digesting, it behaved in a way that was remarkably similar to an orca's, not a great white's. It would range from at the surface down to about 300 feet. And it sort of stayed in that water column for that period of time. Whereas a great white usually tends to go up and down and so forth and so on. So the follow-up behavior, the post-feeding behavior, was indicative of an orca or something like an orca, but nothing else matched. So now you got to think, okay, so it's likely that this animal is an air breather, but it has a stomach temperature of 78 degrees, and it takes 8 days to digest its food. So now, where does that leave us?
All right, and before we go on, you have an entire list, including the orcas. You've got the sperm whale, another great white, right? A cephalopod, which you just covered. And then you go through the list of why it is not those things. You just mentioned speed, body temperature, the very complex digestive process that this thing seems to have, which these do not. And, okay, so how about we go on the cryptid side of things, which you cover in Kronos Rising, and we all love to speak about. I know it probably came up in the docs, maybe a little bit, at least the megalodon, maybe. But what about a mosasaur, something like that, a plesiosaur, or a megalodon? I mean, were those things that came up?
Well, as the saying goes, when you eliminate all the possibles, then you start dealing with an improbable. As they say, however fantastical must be true somehow.
Yeah.
So a larger great white was contraindicated both by digestion, both by movement, and even by body temperature. I mean, they were trying to explain that away in the first show, but according to the elasmobranchologists out there, the maximum temperature differential for a great white stomach versus the outside seawater is about 25 degrees, which leaves this one shy. And also that body temperature varies based on the external water temperature as well. This thing seemed to have a more steady temperature. It led me to believe, I mean, a squid was out, first off. I'll just say this, because a squid, when it eats something and uses its tongue, it shreds it into hamburger. So the satellite tag would have been destroyed. And a squid's temperature is the same as the surrounding seawater. So that was out. Sperm whale, once again, same body temperature as the orca. I don't honestly believe a bull sperm whale could easily catch and kill an agile great white shark like that. I did suspect, however, that what killed Alpha, and I believe this was an air breather, and the reason for that is also her behavior prior to when she was killed and when she was killed. I actually took a screenshot of one of these shows, and they showed the graph of her satellite tag and her movements. And you can see where she made that fateful dive with this thing chasing her. But if you look like 8 days prior to that, or a few days prior to that, a few days prior to that, there were several other rapid deep dives as well. And great white sharks are known to flee like that when, for example, one of their number is killed and eaten by orcas. This has happened on the Farallon Islands, for example. Tagged sharks, when one of their number was killed, all of a sudden the entire population in the area all dove to 1,500 feet and then swam all the way to Hawaii. So they're able to somehow know when one of their number has been taken down, and they go down there to hide in the darkness and deeper than a killer whale can swim. So I would think that she knew that what was coming after her was an air breather, and she managed to use that technique several times to escape. The third time, her luck ran out. Maybe the super predator was catching on to her technique, was able to cut her off somehow, something like that, grab her by the tail. But, so if we're looking at cryptozoological predators, my initial conclusion a year and a half ago was that she was killed and eaten by some sort of air-breathing animal, and I believed it was some sort of marine reptile, whether it was a mosasaur of some kind that just didn't know it was extinct, one of my precious pliosaurs, as people like to say, or something else. The only animal that seemed to match perfectly, at least from known animals, was when I looked at the leatherback sea turtle. And leatherbacks, besides being fast, they swim at 22 miles an hour for a normal size one. And they're able to dive extremely deep, and they're able to stay in cold water, etc. They're able to have a sustained body temperature differential of up to 32 degrees higher than the surrounding water. So when you take the 46 degrees of the water where Alpha was, and then you add 32 degrees to it, you get the exact stomach temperature of the super predator.
Yes, very interesting.
Well, that did seem like, an interesting coincidence. But then, of course, you're like, well, leatherback turtles aren't big enough and probably not fast enough at that size. And, of course, they eat jellyfish and could not kill and eat, certainly not swallow whole, a 9 or 10 foot shark. The shark could even possibly kill the turtle. So could there be anything else out there? So since that initial article was done, evidence came to light from paleontologists doing research that they announced that the body temperatures of extinct marine reptiles like ichthyosaurs, mosasaurs, and pliosaurs was much higher than people anticipated. Their body temperatures were actually similar to that of birds, which is even higher than a cetacean. So their body temperatures were like 100 degrees or more. So that eliminated those animals as the super predator, which left me now with the only possibility of some sort of turtle. And then lo and behold, a few months ago, I was doing a show based on the infamous Gary LaMotta sighting from, I believe it's 1969, if memory serves. And In fact, let me just pull it up here. So basically, yeah. So in May of 1969, a fisherman by the name of Gary LaMotta was heading out of Huquet, hopefully I'm pronouncing that, offshore fishing grounds with the Vancouver Islands. And I'm going to read the actual account. He was less than a half mile offshore when on his port side he saw an animal playing in circles for a few minutes, rolling, exposing side flippers, part of its head. After which it left northwards at a, quote, terrific speed. It came within 50 feet or less of his boat. He and his crewmate had a good look at it. And according to them, what they saw was a blotchy, white and gray color, 38-foot-long creature that was about 6 feet in breadth. It had back fins, fins in the back, 2 side flippers. Its neck and head was 8 feet long. He saw eyes, nostrils, a mouth, and he said, quote, I think I saw an oversized turtle without a shell. And he provided a sketch of it. But what was more interesting about Gary's account was that he actually picked up a Super 8mm movie camera that he had, which I guess back in 1969 was the equivalent of our smartphones, and he got some footage of it. And I wasn't impressed with the footage, Shannon, because it was very grainy and dark and hard to make anything out. But one day I started messing around with it on my new Windows program to enhance images and stuff. And when I played around with it, increasing contrast and lightening it, all of a sudden the animal's head took shape right before my eyes. And in fact, there's enhanced stills of it on the Cronus Rising website. But when you look at the enhanced stills, even though it's still grainy, there's no longer any doubt. It's not a black blob. You can see that it's the actual head and neck of some sort of strange, very, very large turtle poking up out of the water, stabilizing itself with its fins, and looking at the guy on the boat. I mean, you can see it perfectly. The huge eyes, the skin folds under the eyes, the shape of the beak, the lower jaw, the folds of skin on the throat. There's no doubt about it. His account, eliminated anything else. He definitely saw some sort of 38-foot-long turtle.
Max, sorry, just to interrupt you really quick.
I ramble, I'm sorry.
The rambling is great. You're a wonderful guest. Are you kidding? When it comes to a turtle, though, if it's a shellless turtle, right, then isn't the shell an integral part of it just being alive and doing the things that a turtle needs to do? Are there a lot of accounts of shellless turtles?
Well, I think when he says a shellless turtle, I think he meant something more along the lines of a leatherback, which instead of a carapace has like a ridged, like sort of soft shell, what we'll call it, on its back. That's a little more flexible, like a soft shell turtle, but leaner.
Gotcha. That was the thing that got me really excited, and I'm like, well, maybe it is a mosasaur or a plesiosaur, because a shellless turtle, maybe it's just not a turtle at all. But that makes more sense.
Well, the ancient ancestors of turtles didn't have shells as well. Archelon, the largest turtle we know of from the Cretaceous, was a little broader than his description, but it was also like a leatherback in terms of it didn't have an actual armored, bony shell like most sea turtles, like the green turtle and the loggerhead and stuff. I think it sounds to me like he almost described a turtle that was designed to be more fast-moving, more agile, almost like as if you took a pinniped, like a sea lion, and blended it with a leatherback. You would get an animal that was a piscivore, like was able to hunt and chase down fish, let's say, that at its size would not necessarily need the protective shell that a normal sized sea turtle would have. The biggest threat to sea turtles, typically, besides humans, of course, is usually sharks, and their turtles are used for protection. I've actually seen video footage of a tiger shark trying to attack and eat a sea turtle, and the turtle has this great technique where it turns itself on its side and uses its shell like a shield, so that the shark's gape, it can't open its jaws wide enough to get to the turtle, because its mouth would have to encompass the entire turtle from one side to he can't come at him edge on. The turtle's swimming on his side and using his own shell as a shield to protect himself. But when you're a 35, 40 foot long turtle, especially one that's a carnivore itself, you don't have to worry about sharks feeding on you. The tables become turned.
Well, yeah, that's a big ass turtle. You don't want to mess with that guy. Yeah, I like how you brought up the fact that with Gary LaMotta, if they do in fact find this thing and prove it, that it needs to be scientifically named after him. And you suggested a scientific name for it when they come up with this, so I like that.
Yes, I think it was Titanicellus lamotti, which would mean basically LaMotta's giant or titanic turtle. But he got footage of it. People can say what they want, but if you look at these stills, anybody can do it. Anybody can take these frames themselves, and you can lighten and enhance them, and you're going to find the same thing that I found. This is some sort of turtle. You can see it moves naturally. The waves are kind of throwing it around a little bit, but it's stabilizing itself. So it's not like some floating log or some plastic head they put on something or whatever. He actually filmed with the technology he had back then, some sort of giant turtle. So now the question came to me, seems like this is the most likely candidate for the super predator. But you needed something like a leatherback, but scaled up, and something that would feed on fish. And this honestly fits the bill.
Well, let's go back to the actual act of it wanting to pursue Alpha. And I know that one of the theories you said that was brought up was that it actually captured Alpha in the upper water area and then it drug it down. But you're like, no, if you really look at the data, it looks like Alpha, after the third time, didn't win out so well. But she was actually trying to run down into the depths away from this super predator, and then that's when she got caught down there. So my question is, how fast can a great white swim in general, and how far down can they actually go?
I believe their swimming speed, you see different bits of info on different pages and Wikipedia and so forth and so on. I've read typically they say 25 or 30 miles an hour. Some people claim 35 miles an hour on a sprint, like if they're charging upward to try and strike from below, breach attack something. But I would say 25 to 30 miles per hour would be realistic for a shark that size.
Yeah, because some of the breakdown of this turtle is, of course, it's undocumented. It can swim 22 miles an hour or above. Dive to 4,200 feet, which is insane. A very complex digestive system, and of course, the higher body temperature than the surrounding water. And as you said, it's really interesting when you do the math on the tag and then the water, and you're kind of going, oh well, that's a very interesting point right there.
Well, the thing is 22 miles an hour is for a normal size leatherback.
Right.
And that's a bulkier animal for its size, let's say. Gary's turtle, they used the exact word, it took off at, quote, terrific speed. This was an agile animal, and it was proportionally, like I said, more seal or sea lion-like in terms of its body design, according to his sketch, his descriptions of the measurement, etc. I'm sure his descriptions of size were accurate because experienced fishermen, including myself, spend so much time on water that we can look at a boat from 50 feet away or 500 feet away often and determine how large that boat is. That's a 30-footer, that's a 28-footer, that's a 50-footer. You learn size comparisons based on hull size. So when he said 38 feet, he was being pretty accurate because it was less than 50 feet from him. He was staring right at it. So that is probably true. And a turtle that size would be even faster, especially since it was a leaner, more a predatory animal. This thing could probably swim as fast as a killer whale, and killer whales do 35 regularly. And I've seen videos that look like they're hitting 40 miles per hour in bursts. Yeah. So, I think that the idea, of course, like you said, that she was attacked and dragged down there, that's just wishful thinking for people that want to imagine that there's some sort of monstrous extinct shark or something living in the depths that comes up, grabs its meal, and goes back down.
Right.
But the satellite tag tracking shows that she had multiple deep dives like that. and the last one was fatal. And that suggests, it implies very strongly, let's say, that she was up there, this thing went after her, and she managed to get away. And then days later, it happened again, and she managed to get away. And then her luck ran out. If this animal, zoo predator, was an abyssal predator, then it wouldn't have stayed at the surface or down 300 feet for the next 8 days afterward. See? So the evidence overwhelmingly indicates that she was pursued from around, I think, 500 or 600 feet and then chased down to 1,900 or 2,000 feet, caught, eaten, and then the predator just worked its way back up and chilled. It had a nice meal. It took it 8 days to digest it, and so forth and so on. So
be nice to just be able to eat once every 8 days,
Yeah.
It's a lot less work and less dishes.
Mm-hmm. They also, there was another point, actually, in one of the documentaries. They said when they were trying to hunt for this thing, they had at one point a sonar reading down there under the boat at a certain depth, and it was a slow-moving reading that was around 35 feet long. They didn't know what it was. It could be a whale, could be what, but that's in the same size range as what Gary LaMotta saw. And plenty big enough to do the job if that was, and it was slow moving. I've said this before. If you're a big sea turtle, just because you can chase something down at 25 or 30 miles an hour doesn't mean you're going to do that on a regular basis. When they're going from point A to point B, I think leatherbacks swim at, I don't know if it's 5 or 6 miles an hour or something like that, whatever it is. I don't have the data in front of me, but it's a fraction of their regular speed.
Yeah, there's no reason to run on all 8 cylinders if you don't have to, right?
Right. So, it's quite possible that whatever this animal is, they had a sonar reading of it, but didn't have a plan in place to try and attract it, track it, catch it, whatever you videotape it, whatever you want to do.
What a bunch of sissies. They should have gotten the water. If you were there, you'd just jump right in the water. Like, give me a mask. Let's do this. Hold my beer, like your Max memes.
Right. Yeah. A little big enough to eat a 9-foot shark would also be big enough to eat a human being. And
come on, suck it up.
I know how much writing I get done during 8 days in the digestive system. So
I don't know if you believe Moby Dick. He had room for the table, and you get the candles in there. Whatever you need, Max. Whatever you need for your work, so you can keep writing your books. I'm sure they would provide.
Isn't that Pinocchio, not Moby Dick?
Yeah, probably one of those belly whale tales. Yeah, no, Moby Dick was just an annihilation machine, right?
Yes, exactly.
So, as far as if we go off the 22 miles an hour, for the leatherbacks that we know, what is the biggest leatherback on record? Do you have any idea of that?
The largest one unofficially is around 2,000 pounds, I believe. And I think it was about 9 feet long.
Nice.
There are much larger turtles out there. Let's take the loggerhead, for example. I think the largest recorded loggerhead turtle on record had a carapace, a shell length of 7 feet, and weighed a smidgen over 1,200 pounds. But and I've said this before, personally saw one, a dead loggerhead, belly up, while shark fishing out of New York, maybe 30 miles offshore or something like that. And I think this animal had been killed by a boat strike or something like that. But
are you playing a video game right now while you're talking to me? Are you multitasking?
I'm sorry, this phone, I'm trying to disable.
It's okay.
But so anyway, can you imagine a video game? That would be...
Yeah, I'm sure it wouldn't be the first time to oh, sweet baby Jessu, she's so boring. I'm just going to play, what's that game that's hot right now? Fortnite or whatever?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
So me and my friends were out, we were cruising along and working our way towards the quote feeding grounds, and we pulled up short because we saw this huge dead turtle drifting, and it's a sad thing that it was killed, but I guess if it was alive, it probably would have been more cautious and submerged before we got anywhere near it. But its body, the thickness of the body, the vertical height was a good yard. And I compared that to photos of extant turtles, loggerheads, to get an idea, and that meant it had a carapace probably 9 feet long, which now increases its weight to about 2,500 pounds.
Wow.
So, and that's just a loggerhead. That's just a regular turtle that, is fairly common. So there have been historical sightings. I mean, I saw one in Hawaii from, I think it was 2004, where a guy was swimming in a lagoon off the Big Island from a hotel, and he said there was a turtle, and he passed over it, and the shell was 8 or 10 feet long. And he said, I swam right over it. I saw it plain as anything. But what he described was like a green turtle, with a shell. Okay. So you're going to have animals out there that people are going to see that are much bigger than the accepted norms. I think it happens. I think when you're dealing with a large predatory species like this, I would think this animal would probably have set behavior patterns and also be a little more intuitive, knowing that people are potentially dangerous and so forth. Now, Gary's turtle that he saw was shortly after a storm. If you see like the film footage, you can see there are storm clouds rolling out in the background. And I would think maybe it came close to shore because either schools of fish had been affected by the pressure, of the storm front, barometric pressure, and they were schooled up and it was taking advantage of that, or the fact that a storm made it more confident and it was more likely to expose itself, let's say, closer to shore, as opposed to being more out in the open sea.
Yeah, and also in your article, Super Predator Identified, you also have this account from 1877 from the Royal Yacht Osborne, and this was in Gibraltar, and I just wanted to read this really quickly because it's just more anecdotal evidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this was Lieutenant William Haynes. He says, I distinctly saw a head, 2 flappers, and about 30 feet of an animal's shoulder. The head, as nearly as I could judge, was about 6 feet thick, the neck narrower, about 4 to 5 feet, the shoulder about 15 feet across, and the flappers each about 15 feet in length. And then he goes on to say the flappers were those of a turtle, and it resembled a huge seal. And then he said that the resemblance to a seal would be strongest near the back of the head. So he said he didn't see a tail because that would be under the water. But he estimated from its crown or top to just below the shoulder, he reckons it was about 50 feet. So these are big uns.
That is an immense animal. I mean, that's the size of, at 50 feet, the size of a sperm whale in terms of weight and mass, etc. I mean, a 6 foot thick neck. I saw that, and I actually did some number crunching and pulled up a silhouette of a turtle, and I think that if the shoulder, as he's calling it, is 15 feet across, and each of the flippers is 15 feet in length, then the animal must have had a body frame similar to what Gary LaMotta saw also. Because Gary's animal at 38 feet, he said, was 6 feet across the back. So that kind of jibes with this thing, what this person saw being significantly larger. Now, they may have exaggerated it a bit. It may have been more in the size range of what Gary saw and more in the size range of the sonar reading under the super predator researchers. But regardless, if it was a 35 or a 40-foot animal, it's still an immense creature.
Yeah.
And him saying it resembled a seal, once again, suggests that it's related, that it could be the same species. There's another report, I think, I don't have it in front of me, but it was on the other side of the country, I think off of Nova Scotia, if memory serves. And somebody said that they saw a whitish turtle that was, I believe, 40 feet long or 45 feet long. And that color-wise and general description goes with what Gary saw as well. So if this animal is proven to exist, I would think from having even rough footage of it, we kind of know that it does or did. I would hope it still does. Then that seems to be the general consensus, that it would be a whitish gray color, which is a common color for sea turtles. I've handled Ridley's turtles that were whitish in color. And the proportions, it seems to be like Gary said, a shellless turtle that is fairly agile and very fast. So when you've got that kind of speed and added agility to you, it makes sense that it would chase down large fish for a living, whether they're sharks or bluefin tuna or marlin, sailfish. I mean, the thing could pretty much eat almost anything it wants.
So besides the incident in Nova Scotia that you just brought up, the one from Lieutenant Hayes, Gary's animal, and then, of course, Alpha's demise, which it does sound like it's a big-ass turtle, right? So what about coming across any other accounts that you've seen where you're like, well, they're calling it this, but I really think it's one of these massive turtles?
Mm-hmm. Well, if we were going to talk anecdotal reports, there is that animal that was sighted off Scotland in 1959. That one they called the Soay beast because it was off the island of Soay. And this was two witnesses that were out there fishing. And the guy, I'll actually read their account for you because it was from a local newspaper. 1959 is 10 years before Gary's sighting, and this animal does sound similar. He said, I noticed a large black shape on the surface of the water, probably 2 miles from where we were fishing. When the object appeared to be steaming towards us, we both stood up for a better view. We both stared in amazement, for this beast was like some hellish monster of prehistoric times. It sounds like one of my novels.
Is that you, Max? That's you, isn't it?
I wasn't even born then, thank God.
You're a time traveler, my friend.
Yeah. Well, the head was definitely reptilian. He said it was 30 inches high, the head. Large protruding eyes, no visible nasal organs, but a large red gash or a mouth, which seemed to cut the head in half and which appeared to have distinct lips. That sounds sort of like a leatherback there.
Yes.
The creature's back, which rose sharply to its highest point, some 3 or 4 feet out of the water, fell away gradually toward the after end. They said they saw 8 to 10 feet of its back on the waterline. It came within 20 yards of them. Oh, and this was interesting. It seemed oblivious to their presence, despite the fact that it was constantly turning its head from side to side as if surveying all around it. This is the same behavior you see in the animal in the LaMotta footage. Mm-hmm. It pokes its head up out of the water, and it looks around and looks around there. So I would surmise that with most animals, and especially predators, being size-oriented in terms of hierarchy, like bigger great white sharks are force smaller ones to give way to them, that type of thing, that these turtles deal with boats and ships day in, day out. They're going to look around. What's out there? What's around? Is it safe for me to be in this area? Is it dangerous? Is there something I have to worry about? Am I going to get run over by a cruiser or a naval ship or whatever it might be? The behavior patterns seem similar in multiple incidents for that type of thing. And normal sea turtles do that as well. Ones we know of, they'll come up to the surface, poke their heads up, look around. These animals seem to have a slightly longer neck, and they seem more inquisitive or cautious, paranoid, I don't know what you want to call it. But the behavior pattern seems to be there.
How long can they hold their breath for once they grab that air?
I'd have to pull it up, but I think leatherbacks can stay submerged for over an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, crocodilians can hold their breath for a long time. Reptiles don't need a lot of oxygen compared to mammals. Their oxygen carrying capacity, this must go back to the Mesozoic, when you had marine reptiles that evolved to master the oceans and were able to hold their breath for far longer than modern day whales.
I just think it would be pretty shocking to see something that massive, and then you're kind of going, well, it kind of looks like a turtle, but its shell is either, like you said, maybe a little smaller, or you can't quite see it, and I think that would be really jarring, especially if you're going off Jaws and you're kind of going, you're gonna need a bigger boat, right? I mean, if you're going 40 to 50 feet for one of these things.
Well, the researchers from the Super Predator documentaries, they released a piece a couple of years ago, more recently, just a year or two ago, and they theorize now that they feel that their monster, I'll call it, is a very large shark, either an undiscovered species or some sort of subspecies of great white that gets to around 40 feet in length. I will say this: I believe that I'm firmly convinced that there is an undocumented mega shark out there. It's not Megalodon, and they say that also, and I concur with this. It may be some sort of extremely large white shark, or some undocumented species, or something that's supposed to be gone, like, I don't know, like Ototus, which is one of the ancestors of the Megalodon, which existed at the same time as Megalodon for many years. But Ototus would have had teeth that were more similar to a great white, more pointed, more triangular. And I've seen photos of a 40-foot whale shark with a 4-foot bite taken out of it. And if you look close at the scar tissue, you can see individual tooth marks that are very triangular, more so than you would get, from a Megalodon, which had more blunt, sort of rounded teeth, let's say. So that's likely, but at the same time, I believe this creature exists, but I don't believe it's a super predator. I don't think that a 40-foot or 35-foot shark could catch a 9 or 10-foot shark, because they get much slower due to their skeletons as they get bigger, the cartilage, and bulkier, etc. It wouldn't have the swimming speed, and the body temperature, once again, would not be a match, and the digestive system, once again, would not be a match, and the post-feeding behavior, surfacing, none of that would match. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I just really think that everything seems to indicate a chelonian, some sort of sea turtle. And if I was those guys with their extensive budget and research vessels, etc., I would go back into the same region at the same time of year that this attack took place, and I would try and bait this animal as if you were fishing for anything else.
Right.
You put something down there that it wants to eat. It doesn't have to be a great white shark, but there are non-protected shark species that could use one of those for bait, or some other large piece of bait. Find out if this thing is intelligent enough to know a problem bait when it sees it or not. If it's not, if it grabs it. I've hauled in huge snapping turtles while fishing. You've got a chance to bring in the quote fish of a lifetime and prove that this thing actually exists. That would be ideally the best way to go about doing it.
What's the biggest thing you've ever seen out there when you're out fishing or just on the water?
Besides my ego?
Of course. Our egos are both equally quite large, obviously.
Let me think. I guess the largest thing I've ever seen out in the water would be a humpback whale. Something in the 45 to 50-foot range. The biggest shark I've ever caught was a 12-foot blue shark that would have been considerably heavier than the current world record. I've seen larger, different sharks out there. But I've never seen a turtle that size. But then again, the dead turtle that I've seen dwarfs the existing record for the species. So you're not going to see everything, obviously. It's not like I live on the water and you can't be everywhere at one time. It's a big ocean.
Max, you can't ride the humpback whale. No, don't try that again. Hold my beer. There you go. I see those Max memes and I just think they're spectacular.
Yeah, and they're funny, but it's like sooner or later people are going to think I'm some sort of raving alcoholic who sits around with like a tube going to my mouth while I write.
You just constantly have a beer in your hand. I mean, what?
No, I need my hands for writing, so I have to have.
You need one hand for writing, Max. Come on, don't be dramatic.
It's a straw, this is the secret to his writing style.
It's the beer hat. It's the beer hat with the two cans, and the tubes, like you said. Yeah, that's all you need. And you have both your hands for your writing. What?
That would be something. But can you imagine? What was it? There was one time when I had somebody who was trying to be my agent a couple of years ago, and I had written this scene, and I had like 3 hours sleep the night before, and it was just awful. I mean, awful, horrible. And I looked at it and I was like, who wrote this stuff? It's like, you're like,
Yeah.
and then she was like, tell me the truth. You had an orangutan in your office and you sat at the keyboard and you went fishing and let it do work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
now we know your secret.
yeah, wishful thinking. If only it was that easy,
Yeah. Those
2,000 words, 2,000 words a day don't write themselves, let me tell you.
Those chimps, they'd be probably pretty cheap laborers. Get a bunch of bananas and let it throw some crap around your house. It's all good.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. I've seen books out there that look like they were written by an orangutan. And now, somebody asked me once in a question, I think it was in an interview or something, and they asked me, do you read like a lot of competitors' books, like this one, that one, this one, that one, quote, competitors, okay? And I'm talking not the higher end stuff that's out there, but there's a lot of low grade stuff out there. And I said, no, I absolutely refuse to read stuff like that. And they're like, why? And my response is, and this is the truth, is I have some sort of phobia when it comes to this. It's like I'm very chameleon-like when it comes to absorbing things.
Yeah.
You put me in England for a week, I'm going to come back with an English accent. Okay. You give me a book to read, I may start absorbing that author's technique.
No, I get that. And that's why I don't listen to other people that I'm going to have on my show. Sometimes they'll send me, a link to something and I appreciate that, but I almost never will go and listen to that interview because I want to make mine. And, and I like to hear the stories fresh anyway, so that I can come up with questions that I think are, they're just very from the heart. And I think it's possibly a question that one of the listeners might want to know as well. So,
yeah, but I think that bad writing is contagious. See,
you do?
I'm afraid that I'm going to catch it if I read somebody's trashy book. Yeah, and I won't do it. I'll open the first page and I read the first graph or two, and if it doesn't, like Terry Brooks is one of my idols, let's say, when I was growing up, and he sort of Shannara, all those books, and he is amazing, descriptive, visceral. I mean, everything about him, he inspires me.
Have you read Terry Goodkind? Sorry, just to interject.
I'm sorry. Say again.
Have you read Terry Goodkind?
No.
If you like Terry Brooks, you will love Terry Goodkind. It's the Wizards First Rule series. It's incredible.
I can't read anything if it's not top drawer.
I can see you reading the first couple paragraphs, and you just throw it away, just screaming, like you just push it away from your body, screaming as if it's going to bite you, right?
I shudder and I close the cover. Dan Brown has a great writing style. I admire his writing to no end. I don't have time to read all his books. I would love to. It's on my list, sitting in a drawer, a bunch of books. But you aim to stay at your own level or improve. You never take a step backwards.
I agree. Well, okay. Well, speaking about your writing, what's going on with that? Is there anything that we can mention or that you want to bring up as far as the writing side of your work goes?
Oh, certainly. I would be remiss if I didn't obviously plug myself.
Of course.
But my latest novel, which is book 5 in the Cronus Rising series, came out towards the end of June, a couple months ago. It's done very well and been incredibly well received, and I was very pleased with it because it's like I'm very critical of myself. My editor said that it was the best book I've ever written, even better than Cronus Rising Book 1, which many people claim is their favorite book of all time. And I actually think he's onto something, because when I was doing my final proof through it, before it went to the editor, I enjoyed it myself, which is a rarity. Because normally when you write something and you write and rewrite and edit and re-edit, etc., you're so tired of it that it's a chore. In this case, I was so into the story myself that I really enjoyed it. but it's kicking butt, taking names, as they say. So I encourage everyone to check it out. You can get it in Kindle and Nook and softcover and hardcover cover. They're also doing a great promo right now, which they've never done before, where if anybody out there has Amazon Prime or a subscription with Amazon called Kindle Unlimited, you can actually borrow and read the Kindle version of Cronus Rising, the very first novel, for nothing, free, all 600 pages of it. Which is really cool. You don't have to actually pay for it, and it gives you a quality read that introduces you to the series as well. Without, I guess, I'd say you're getting your money's worth. Let's put it that way.
Yes, and please plug your website so that everybody can go check out all the blog posts. And do you have the links there for the show as well?
If they go on I don't think the Marine Mysteries is synced up to the site yet. There might be links to it, though, in some of the blog posts, especially ones that are related. I believe those are. But yes, if people want to go to the website, it's cronusrising.com, KRONOSRISING.com. And there are all the blog posts are on there. There's also a great paleo art gallery by a lot of talented artists. I encourage you to check it out. And lots of other stuff, videos, interviews, and a lot of great stuff.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you, even if you don't have any incredible stories of flying things and, that you were riding a humpback whale. It's still a fantastic time to have you on, so I appreciate that. Actually,
I was on vacation recently, and when I was in the Caribbean, I got to swim with dolphins.
That's not what I'm looking for, Max. Come on, I need dramatic. I need you riding a killer whale, like one arm up, like 8 seconds, buddy.
There wasn't any killer whales available. I was pulled through the water by a dolphin. She almost drowned me.
Oh, goodness me. Okay, that's not good.
And I did swim with 2 different sea turtles down there, a green turtle and a hawksbill. I saw a barracuda while snorkeling. That made me a little nervous because you never know. You have something shining on you. You don't want to get bitten by one of those things. A lot of great adventures, climbing Dunn's River Falls in Jamaica, and swimming with stingrays. I actually handled a 5-foot stingray, and I held its tail stinger in my hand. This is how Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter, was killed by one of these animals, God rest his soul. And you couldn't help but think of him at that moment. It's very sad. But at the same time, I had to be very careful because you never know, one of these animals is going to get upset or aggressive, and you don't want to go out like that. But if I do have an adventure where I get a trident and I get to ride a 30-foot bull killer whale at high speed, sitting on his back, holding a dorsal fin with a beer in my other hand.
Gonna come in first?
Do
I get first dibs then?
Absolutely.
All
you
right.
can't ride a bull killer whale while drinking beer.
You're literally going, no, this time I was drinking a beer because I needed it at that point in time. Yeah.
I don't think a killer whale would put up with that, a wild one, and I don't think he would appreciate it. And it might be the first proven incident of a person being killed and eaten by one of those things. So.
Yeah, I think that person would deserve it in that case. That's a lot of ass hattery that just needs to be disposed of, probably.
You don't mess with an animal that kills and eats great white sharks.
No, that's bad.
And they dispatch them so easily. It's not even a contest. I mean, it's just predator and prey.
Yeah.
Pure and simple. They take them apart with surgical precision, clobber them, rip them open, eat their livers, and leave the rest to drift and rot and be eaten by scavengers. So.
And on that note, I'll let you go so you can go eat dinner.
Thank you very much, Shannon. It was my pleasure as always.
No, my pleasure too. Thanks so much, Max.
Have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.